I'm so happy. You were thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much. I've said this to Leslie. This is always my favorite to be with you guys. It is. It's a whole different experience. So thank you.
So how do you convince your actors that everything is possible, even when they're scared of heights, when they don't consider themselves singers or dancers in other films that you have made?
It's so interesting when I work with actors. I really find they need to feel positive reinforcement. And it's such a simple thing to do. It's like being a really good parent. And I try and achieve that when we're working. For instance, as an example, Ben Whishaw, who plays Michael Banks, he'd never sung before. He was sort of nervous about how do you do that, and I always feel that people can do so much. It's just feeling that they can and knowing that they can. I like to protect them in rehearsals when we had over 2 months of rehearsal. So it was during that time that you can fail and be bad, and then learn to get better and not feel judged. That's a really important thing. I would like to protect actors, to make them feel they can do things and try things. And everybody was so nervous on this film because we were following that extraordinary film. It means so much to me. So many people. I'm sure everybody in this room. And so we knew we were, doing the impossible. But I honestly felt like if we did it together from the right place, with a great respect for the first film, and found our own way at the same time, then we would at least have done it in the right way, and then you hope that it works.
You mentioned at D23 Expo that you had found the original table. That you found the original table from the foyer from the first movie.
Oh my gosh, I love that you know that.
Yes. Did you use any other props from the first film, maybe like the umbrella or anything like that?
Well, here's the thing. I visited the Disney archives. They didn't really have the archives in the 60s. Not much. There's some. What there is, I saw. So, you remember the blocks from Mary Poppins? Mm-hmm. We replicated the blocks. They didn't want to give us the blocks. But we replicated the blocks. They're in the attic if you look. Mm-hmm. Also, the snow globe, we replicated that as well. So the only real thing is that table in the front hall, which I saw at Club 33 at Disneyland. And I said, that's in the movie. They let us have it, and they did.
Nice.
That was really moving to me. But, and the kite, of course, we replicated that created our own version of the kite, but there were those very specific things from the first film that I really wanted to hold on to if I could, and that's for the people who love the first film and know it. It's those little Easter eggs, and I use myself honestly as a barometer the whole time. What would I want to see? I wouldn't want to abuse it too much because it's very easy to sort of overdo it, but I wanted to specifically and strategically place things that meant something to people.
Votes for women. That was a good one.
That was really good.
Hi.
Hi.
Could you please tell me how it was to work with Dick Van Dyke?
Oh.
And you have any funny stories about that on set and stuff like that?
He's something else. There's no one like him. I was so excited and nervous to even call him to ask him to do this, because he's a hero. For me, and that's the Dick Van Dyke Show for me, honestly, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, all of it, Bye Bye Birdie, all of it. So, talking to him, he just disarms you immediately. He's so joyous, and he's just sort of who he is. And he said yes so quickly. He wanted to be part of it. He was excited to be part of it. And when he came onto the set, he, honest to God, grabbed my arm as we were walking on. He said, I feel the same spirit here on this set that I do, I did in the first film. And I thought, okay, well, that's everything. That's all I need to hear. That was everything for me to hear that from him.
Was that really him dancing, or was that a
Oh, yes.
Oh, it was.
Oh, yes. Also, in fact, I said to Lynn and Emily, I said, if he falls off that desk, you're dead.
She looked like she was trying to go over there to protect him.
Who else? There's no one there.
Right.
I said, you were spotting him. So if he starts to wobble, I want you to jump in. It was perfectly fine. In fact, he doesn't even use Lynn's hand. You see Lynn? When you see it the next time, if you see it the next time.
Tonight.
Every night. When you see Lynn is literally staying there like, okay, and he doesn't use him. He just goes right up.
So when you were talking about the props, you said you
were specific and strategic about using them
Yes.
from the original movie.
Yes.
And I feel like that same method was used for the original music and how it was kind of placed in here and
Very
there.
much so.
So how much creative control did you give your songwriters with that?
Well, we did it together. I mean, the thing I will say about an original musical is that you have to actually kind of do it together.
Mhm.
There's no version of sort of people going off. It's all into one sort of piece, you know. It's all, it's a real puzzle. But I knew that obviously, you know, when you hear like the strains of Feed the Birds or Supercalifragilistic, you know, whatever you hear, or Spoonful of Sugar, those mean so much to us. So you can abuse that. And so I strategically placed that exactly like the items, like the props and things. In fact, the majority of it happens literally in the last like 15 minutes. So, because I feel like we've earned it. You know, by that time, I feel like, you know, she looks in the balloon and you hear a spoonful of sugar, or they're up in the air and you hear a little "Let's Go Fly a Kite," because I think we're coming full circle. Michael's now a child, and we tried to make it something that was emotional.
Okay.
I will say, when Dick Van Dyke does that monologue to the kids, where he tells the story about Michael as a little boy and tuppence and all of that, and you hear "Feed the Birds."
Yeah.
I will tell you now that when I shot that scene, I like to work with music, so I had Feed the Birds, the music in my ear, and I'm watching Dick Van Dyke, and I have him in my ear too. And he's delivering this monologue, and I honestly broke down. I couldn't breathe, and I couldn't say cut. I couldn't say it. I just couldn't, nothing came out. I was so moved. I think Emily said cut or something. I think that's it. Because I just couldn't. I couldn't believe my life had come full circle from a 4-year-old boy having seen the film, with Dick Van Dyke there, hearing Feed the Birds, watching him say that. He's in our film 54 years later, as a 91-year-old man. I mean, that is just magic to me. It was total magic. I'm still not over it.
It's magic watching it.
Really?
It is.
Oh, that's so nice to hear.
Magical.
Yeah.
So, speaking of fun,
Yes.
magical moments, what was the inspiration for that whole bathtub scene?
Well, it's her first adventure. You know, she arrives, and so you have to look for something. You know, the great thing about the P.L. Travers books is that even though there's no narrative to any of them, they're all just episodic. It's all about taking an ordinary, everyday event and turning it into something magical, an adventure that's fun. Even, you know, cleaning up your room turns into an adventure in the first film, right? So I was looking for something that kids hate, and it's taking it back.
That's my son.
Right? So I thought, how can she turn, because they're so cynical, the kids, you know, except for the little one who loves her and believes her right, but they're also sort of judgmental and wary. And I thought, you know, if she, you know, the great thing about Mary Poppins, she does these adventures but denies them ever happening and just does them without, you know, announcing them. You know, all of a sudden that dolphin comes up, she doesn't know yet, things like that. Like, what's going on, you know? But I thought that could open up to a beautiful world. And there is an underwater adventure. It's not from a bathtub, but there is an underwater adventure in one of the Poppins books. There are 8 of them. And so I thought, well, we could use sort of the feeling of the P.L. Travers underwater. And then I came up with this idea of her seeing all the people from the neighborhood below the water, you know, as they're moving through, and trying to open the eyes of these kids that have grown up too fast, and forced to become adults too quickly because they've taken on their adult responsibilities because the mother's gone. So I sort of found our way with that, you know. And then you work backwards. You're like, well, then you have to become a complete mess for them to have to take a bath in the middle of the day. So then that's the muddy park, and you know, it's all sort of feeds together.
So you have a very distinct choreographic style, yet I almost felt like you were channeling Mark Bro in this film. And
I love that you know who Mark Bro
oh
is.
no, I was being dance therapy. We'll go back there. I hope we can talk that for hours, but because it is a really distinct look. I mean, there's a tiny Fosse. I mean, he's got a lot of, you know, different aspects in it, but it really felt like Mark Bro choreography. And you really haven't seen it since then on film.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, you know, it's so funny. I feel like for myself, because I grew up in that era, I worked with Michael Bennett Fosse and Jerome Robbins. That's my time.
I did.
I'm sure. But Mark Rowe was a huge influence on me too because of his work in Mary Poppins, his work in Sound of Music, his work in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang with Dee Dee Wood. You know, I feel like those choreographers live inside me, that work. That's the style of dance I did as a dancer when I started. And John DeLuca too. John DeLuca was worked with Bob Fosse and was in Bob Fosse's dance. And so all of that is in it just becomes part of you. And so it was never an intentional sort of let's do that or this or that. It just comes out of us. And I don't sort of judge and say, well, that's Bob or that's Michael Bennett or that's this. You know, it's just something that comes naturally out of what we feel when we're expressing ourselves through dance. But that's a huge compliment to me because I love his work.
Yes.
It was so inventive with Dee Dee Wood. It was so athletic. I mean, I will say, this is an 8-minute number, that number of Triple Little Light, fantastic. I was so excited to do a big athletic musical production number with men and Mary and of course and Jack leading it and the kids. That was like a total dream for me. I was right in my wheelhouse, exactly what I wanted.
Well, it came through.
Yeah.
The animation sequences were amazing and beautiful and so clean. And I just want to know about the process because it looked, I can imagine it was ridiculously challenging.
Thank you for asking about that one because that was the most challenging part of the whole filmmaking. And it's the first thing we shot right away because the animators, you know, it's all hand-drawn animation, every frame. So we needed to get that material to the animators right away. And the reason our post-production was, I think, close to 14, 15 months was because of the hand-drawn animation. They needed that time. So it's that thing. Can you imagine flip, draw, flip, flip. That crazy. It's so hard. I went and visited them. You know, I would say the majority of them came out of retirement to do this. It's kind of a lost art. Although I have to say I was somewhat hopeful because a lot of the artists there were also in their 20s. They were more interested in working on the hand-drawn animation than the computer-generated work. So that was really good. In a funny way, I thought it will seem fresh because we haven't seen it for so long, you know? You haven't seen that beautiful artistry of that work, you know? And so, putting that together, we started with the music hall number, Our Cover Is Not the Book. And we had to shoot it like literally 3 different times. So the first time you shoot it with Mary Poppins. For instance, just say Mary Poppins and the Penguins, that section. So it would be Mary Poppins, and then we would have reference dancers being the penguins. So of course they're not the size of the penguins. So we got small dancers, but not. They were, you know. And so we could set the frame, set the shot, and film it like that. And then we would take them out, and she would dance alone, pretend they're there. And then I would take Mary out and put just the penguin reference dancers in, so that the animators would know exactly how. So all that's very specifically choreographed. You know, the flamingos, I don't know if you remember the little flamingo, that's all choreographed with women that we, you know, because I wanted to be able to control the choreography of even that. So the layers of it were so complicated. You know, you walk into a huge green room, and everybody's, you know, I'm trying to pretend that they're in a carriage. You know, the carriage isn't moving because that's all background. But the kids have to have an eye line that watches like a big giraffe go by, and we have this huge giraffe, for instance, on a pole, you know, just walking it past. So the kids are imagining it. You know, everybody had to really launch their imagination to see what it was going to be. But I don't think anybody quite expected what it was going to end up being until they saw it. And that was mind-blowing for Lynn and Emily and the kids. They were blown away by, wow, that's what we were doing. You know? Yeah, you know what? I did it with with Emily and Lynn. The kids are British, so they live in London. So I got on the phone the moment it was over. And they couldn't believe it. And the whole time we were working on, rehearsing, they were like, when are we going to do the chase? Because that chase section, you know, it's just them. There are no adults. Get the adults out of here. And that was so fabulous to work with them on that sequence because, you know, they get to be like action heroes. They were so excited.
And I always felt there was a nod to Chicago in The Cover's Not a Book with Belle McKelvey. I had a little vibe.
I love that. Well, you know what? We were in that similar era because it was the 30s. And so we were trying to kind of find our time with that kind of, that bob, And it was also, I'll tell you something, here's the story about that bob. That's the easiest haircut to have when you're doing hat work. Because it's often, well, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why it's used a lot.
Last question back here with Rachel.
Last night you had said that there was lots of material in the books. So there's 8 books.
Yes.
Is there enough material for another movie?
Well, I'll tell you, that's just a question. Of course, I'm just sort of holding my breath to see how this movie's embraced, hopefully, and how it does, and if people accept it and are excited by it. If it does, I think there will be talk about it because there is a lot of material. There's a lot of material. We walked through it and cherry-picked what we thought were the best adventures that we could musicalize and create like a set piece to. But I will say there was a lot left on the table as we were working through it. We don't have that. So there is. The question would be, what's the narrative? What's the story? Because that's what's not in those books. So do we go backwards? Someone said, "Do you want to find out, what Mary Poppins, how she became Mary Poppins?" And I thought, it's like I don't want to know about her too much. The best thing about her is that we don't know.
Yeah.
So that's not such a great idea. So but she definitely can visit other families and other, there's other stories there for sure. If there's a lot of Star Wars stories, there can be a lot of Mary Poppins.